Muchas gracias, Lani.
Thank you very much, Lenny, and a very good morning to one and to all. My warmest greetings to you. I'd like to begin by welcoming the fact that the synthesis report recognises many of the world's crises that we see today as being rooted in structural inequality, injustice, discrimination, and environmental and social exploitation. We also welcome the reaffirmation in the synthesis report of the broader international human rights framework and the placing of this at the heart of the agenda, including the right to development and future generations' well-being. Inter alia, the report also stresses the key role to be played by civil society in the pursuit of solutions to the problems that we currently face. But given that I only have a few minutes to share our points of view with you, I would prefer, in order to contribute to the dialogue, to draw attention to some of the gaps that we found in the synthesis report as prepared by the Secretary General. We think, as the first point I'd like to make, that the report chose to ignore the UN-NGLS report entitled Advancing Regional Recommendations on the Post-2015 Development Agenda, which goes further than the other reports in terms of progressive proposals, especially in the areas of reforming the international economic architecture. I would say that we are deeply disappointed that the synthesis report falls far short of proposing a truly just and democratic development model beyond the dominant framework of neoliberalism. Civil society organizations and movements have for a long time now made the point that for the post-2015 development agenda to be truly transformative, it needs to put people, especially the poorest and the most marginalized, at the front and center of development. The report hides the harsh reality that entrenched interests, especially corporate interests, are behind unsustainable and unjust patterns of extraction or mining, production, consumption and waste that are exacerbating poverty, hunger and climate change in today's world. We would like to reiterate our belief that unjust and unequal power relationships are at the root of a multidimensional poverty and inequalities, as well as social exclusion and ecological destruction. And we believe that there is a need to place the principle of justice instead at the heart of the alternative development process that we're seeking. We also like to reiterate our demand for concrete and meaningful actions to bring about change to the structural root causes of the current inequality. We believe that the framework of development justice and living well, or vivir bien, are alternative frameworks that comprehensively capture the demands of the majority of the poor and marginalized, built around 5 fundamental elements. Firstly, redistributive justice. One major omission of the synthesis report prepared by the Secretary General is the way it neglects to go into further depth on targets and indicators for the goal of addressing inequality. A further issue of justice would be addressing historical responsibilities and inequities between countries, rather than seeking to transfer responsibility for such issues to private actors who are less accountable for the needs of those affected by the issue as raised. There is a need to adjust the normative framework of financial transfers from an aid-based approach to a rights-based approach. All of this entails eliminating any conditionalities attached to ODA and should be binding for governments to meet their obligations. I turn now to the issue of economic justice. We welcome the renewed emphasis in the synthesis report on the need to translate economic growth into shared prosperity and to seek alternative methods to a simple GDP-based approach, moving towards an approach that adequately accounts for human well-being, justice, social progress, sustainability and equity. So we welcome the fact that this point is made, but we would have welcomed more concrete ways of achieving this being described in the synthesis report. The report mentions the need to generate inclusive and decent employment. However, we feel that this is a step back from the broader, more balanced and internationally recognized framework of the International Labour Organization's Decent Work Agenda. The synthesis report proposes the need to tap into private resources and facilitate foreign direct investment, or FDI, in developing countries. We find this to be somewhat alarming, given that, as per the experience of many nations in the global south, particularly in the energy sector, where we have seen that liberalization of the FDI process has greatly sapped the resources of these countries in the global south and weakened their economies, and merely served to favor wealthy countries and their based transnational companies and banks. I turn now to the issue of gender and social justice. Here we believe that the synthesis report lags behind the recommendations already included in the outcome document of the Open Working Group that clearly calls for equal opportunities for leadership and effective participation of women at all levels, particularly all levels of government. While sexual health has already been included in the official version of the report, we're still concerned to see that there's no reference in the report to sexual rights. The report also has a dearth of proposals for countering the negative impact of inheritance, succession, customary and/or family laws and marriage-related practices on women's rights, and I would stress particularly the need to deliver their equal right to land. To conclude, I would like to address the issue of the foundations of environmental justice, which needs to be based on the principle of CBDR, common but differentiated responsibilities. This issue will be dealt with later, but I would nonetheless like to draw the attention of the fact that we have a concern around it. Thank you very much.